Hi, my name is Charles Diggs. I will be discussing the difference between the AR-15, which is a civilian use rifle, which is based off the M16 rifle, and the actual differences between the two. The M16, for any of you who don't know, is an actual assault rifle. It is used by the military. It is military grade. For those of you who don't know, a military grade weapon is something that has actually been tested and used by the military. They have to accept the firearm for it to be considered military grade. And this actually goes for not just firearms, but pretty much any equipment accepted by the military. So I'm going to try to use a definition. Sorry, part of it's technical, but I will try to bring it around to one of the most important differences between the AR-15 that you can actually check in most pictures, or just talking to a military person or someone who knows about the rifle. You can do your own research, basically, I suggest, after me giving you this info. So, the U.S. Army defines assault rifles as short, compact, selective fire weapons that fire a cartridge intermediate in power between submachine gun and rifle cartridges. In strict definition, a firearm must have at least the following characteristics to be considered an assault rifle. It must have a selective fire. It must be capable of selective fire. It must have intermediate power cartridge, more power than a pistol, but less than a standard rifle or battle rifle. Examples of intermediate cartridges are the 7.9 times 30 millimeter Kurtz, the 7.62 times 39 millimeter, and the 5.56 times 45 millimeter NATO. Its ammunition must be supplied with a detachable box magazine. It must have an effective range of at least 300 meters. For those of you who need another measurement, 330 yards. For those using the Old English system like we do in the United States. So they have to meet those criteria. I'll bring your attention to the thing that's less technical, but you can easily see, and that's the selective fire. So, selective fire is the capability of a weapon to adjust to fire in semi-automatic, fully automatic, and burst mode. The modes are chosen by a selector switch, which varies depending on the weapon's design. Now, if anybody who needs a little more explanation, that means in order for it to be considered an assault rifle, it cannot just be a semi-automatic. The M1 Garand and many other battle rifles are semi-automatic. In fact, semi-automatic has existed for quite a while. I believe the first one that I can remember off the top of my head that was a military would have been long before would have started in, like, I think the Mexican War, if it was considered military grade. But if you want to do semi-automatics in general, it would start in around the 1860s. With they actually had a bunch of Rangers, Texas Rangers, that were actually being ambushed by local Native American tribes, and they were going to get slaughtered if they were using the actual old technology, but their semi-automatic rifles allowed them to carry the day and win. So, again, there has to be a difference between, there's actually multiple selectors. So you will see it on the side of, for those of you looking for a picture, you will see it on the side of the firearm. Will actually have different settings. For semi-automatic rifles, you basically have on, or whatever they want to call it, depends on the design, and like safe. Normally they'll say safe. That's the normal thing. So that way you can know, okay, this thing's ready to fire and this is safe. Once I have it on safe, you shouldn't be able to pull the trigger. In fact, it should kind of lock up, or at the very least it shouldn't fire. So that's the difference. So and I could give you another thing that will actually make this even simpler. All military rifles, at least in the U.S. military, since the M1, have a designation where they put an M in front of the number. The AR-15, by definition, does not have an M in front of the number. M stands for military grade, something that's been tested by the military. The M1 Garand, M14, M16, pretty much every firearm, even the M60, which is actually a light machine gun, has an M in front of the thing. So there's that whole thing. You also need a special license for anything considered military grade. Like you pretty much have to be a military contractor or somebody working for the government in order to get access to military grade hardware. It's just one of those things. So, and if anybody, because there's a common misconception that assault rifle is the same thing as the AR. AR actually stands for armor light. In fact, if you want to do more research, I recommend it. There actually are AR kind of branched off onto its own. It's like actually has different variants. Like the AR-10, for instance, I believe has the 308 round, which is actually a very powerful round, and you can use for hunting and other stuff. But it has considerably more punch than a 5.56, and the AR-10 actually fires, I think, up to 1,500 yards, but at least 1,000 yards bare minimum. So it significantly has a greater distance. There's also other parts of the platform where they have different rounds that you can do. I think you can even do a 22 if you really wanted to. Setup if you wanted to switch out parts, but that's usually you would have to have the know-how or talk to a gunsmith. But I hope this helps people understand the differences between the two types. You have the M16, which has been tested and used, and then you have the AR-15 that has never been tested or used inside the military. There's no reason for them to do it at all because they already have the M16. It's by far superior. It's been tested, been used in combat. You wouldn't basically do the same thing twice. It just doesn't make sense. So sometimes people lie to you when they're trying to get you to understand an argument. I recommend you do your own research if you don't believe me. I know I'm a perfect stranger, but I have served, and I know many other people who have served that are way more familiar with the armament than even I am. Like a Marine, I'm an Air Force guy, senior airman. So